Hi, I'm Cath Frost. I'm the COO for Hiscox in the UK. We employ about 3,000 people group-wide and 900 of those in the UK. And this is my Duvet flip.
Where would you advise them to start?
Get out, go and knock on doors, go and be curious and go and find out if that's for you.
And do a number of them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it wakes you up and it excites you.
And it's a bit like, when you go on a holiday destination, it's a little bit unknown and you're kind of like, oh, this is great. I think insurance is quite similar.
Seems like 6 jobs in one.
This is where it comes to kind of that bit about building a team.
What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
Well, you know what? Hi, I'm Cath Frost. I'm the COO for Hiscox in the UK. It's my first podcast, so I'm a little bit maybe a bit nervous. I just think the premise of the podcast is fantastic, reaching not just kind of people who are kind of school or college leavers, but anyone really who's looking for a little bit of advice about their career. I've never met Jack before. What I've seen from his podcast is he is brilliant at asking a question. I'm curious to see where he goes with the conversation, and maybe I'll get some hints and tips as to how to do it myself when I go back to the office. Right, Jack, ready to go?
So welcome to my duvet flip. How are we?
Thank you very much. Really good. This is so exciting. This is great.
This is your first ever
podcast. I mean, I'm many a podcast listened, and I've recently got into yours, which I have to say is very, very good. So yeah, that's now my favourites list. But yeah, never been on a podcast before. I was saying before, I've done mini videos for my teams to kind of give updates, because I often think in an email you can just delete, whereas if it's my face on a screen, they'll probably be really intrigued to watch it. So yeah.
Oh, this is going to be cool, because we're going to create a trailer and everything. There you go. But today you're on the hot seat, and we're talking about your career, your life lessons, anything that you want to share to people.
Brilliant. In
terms of to help people move forward, right?
Great.
So I want to start here. Why get into insurance? Why?
Yeah. So I guess my first role, I was leaving university. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I thought, well, I want to carry on with my qualifications and just see if I can help to learn a little bit more and see where that leads me to. So I looked for graduate schemes, because I thought, that's a great way, meet a great bunch of people, like-minded, and have kind of a structured program to work through. And RSA Insurance was one of the companies that I looked at, and I went through the interview process and was successful. And I have to say, I wasn't specifically targeting insurance at that point in time. It was more just, I thought financial services. And it's funny, because I remember when you were in school and you'd have interviews with people about what you wanted to do. I can't even remember what they told me I should be, but it certainly wasn't anything like the career journey I've had. But you kind of go, well, there's, you could be a vet or a doctor. So they were the ones really, you go and do 5 or 6 years at university. Then you could do law or accountancy. And then it kind of stops, in terms of the kind of industries you could go into. And I genuinely think even today they're missing a trick with insurance. For me, it's kind of the best of a lot of different worlds, because you go into an insurance organisation and there are so many different disciplines you can go into. So you could be on the technical side of underwriting and really understand about underwriting risk and the purpose for insurance and what that means. Or you could go into claims where, someone is potentially at the worst point of their lives, something really bad has happened, and you get to step up and help them in that moment. Or you could do back office, like I entered into with sort of finance and, legal or governance and compliance. There's just so much going for it. And it's a bit like, when you go on a holiday destination, it's a little bit unknown and you're kind of like, oh, this is great. There's not many tourists here. I think insurance is quite similar. I think when people really start to learn about the magic of an insurance organisation, what it can offer you, but also having a think about, the world we live in today. Not everyone needs a lawyer for anything. Not everyone needs an accountant for anything. But if you own a car, a house, you've likely purchased that insurance before you've ever needed to go down the route of any of the other, industries I've talked to. So there's just so much going for it.
So it wakes you up and it excites you.
Yeah, I just think there's so many possibilities. And I think, if I consider when I started, I did insurance and I thought, okay, so maybe this is me. I'm going to be an accountant or a finance director. And I kind of thought that was the path I'd take. And it was a brilliant basis. I learnt loads. I think it's a fantastic foundation. And actually some of the CEOs I've worked for in the past have done a similar route. So started off in finance, then gone elsewhere. And it was the point at which that clicked with me, and you look up and you look out. And I remember speaking to a friend who had actually joined the graduate scheme with, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so ago. And he said, oh, you're still at RSA, as if that was a bad thing. And I was like, yeah, but I've done all these different jobs. I've had all of this different experience, and it's all within one organisation. So I think that, I think that's brilliant. So yeah, I have a real passion for insurance. I think when I started out, I didn't think I'd be saying that my career and my industry was insurance, but I'm really proud that it is. Because I think,
can see that.
We play such an important role in people's lives. That point where it matters to people to have that coverage for the moments where they hope never happens, but ultimately, whether you like it or not, situations happen, you need to claim. Our job as the insurance company is to make that experience as good as possible. And I'm really, proud to say, certainly from Hiscox perspective, some of the scores we get for Net Promoter Score for customers is sky high, because we constantly think customer, and that's what it's all about.
If you close your eyes now, you woke back up and it was your first day in insurance, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? I think I'd probably worry about the future less. I mean, I am inherently, I'm a very conscientious person, and I think sometimes with that comes worry in terms of what's next, or what can I control and what can I not control. And I think certainly when I was on the grad scheme, I wasn't really thinking that much further ahead. I was kind of just get through your exams and then see. I think the thing for me in my mid-20s, late 20s, when I was starting to realise that I didn't want to be, I didn't want to follow the career path of some of my colleagues and be the finance director or the CFO, I was consumed for, a number of years, probably, certainly months, about a worry about, well, what's for me? I've done all this work to become a qualified accountant, but what if that's not for me? And I almost kind of started to think, well, that's me done then. If I don't want to carry on down this finance route, where do I go? And all that worry, and actually I now look back and I go,
why did I worry?
Why did I worry? I often read those quotes around, worrying today doesn't take away something, the worry for tomorrow, whatever. So just crack on and enjoy today. It's definitely something I need to live more by, even today. But certainly back then, I just wish someone had been sat there on my shoulder to say, don't worry about it, just chill, enjoy what you're doing, and it'll work out.
Do you think you was worrying because you cared?
Hugely. I think twofold. One is, I worked really hard at my accountancy exams. I passed them all, and I was really proud of myself. And so that achievement, having not got the A-level grades that I wanted and being really disappointed with that, got a good degree, and then these accountancy qualifications. So almost it was a bit of a validation of me as well, and kind of how far I could go. But then it was more just, I think certainly, I think there's some people in the world who are very happy, very free, and just kind of take each day as it comes and don't need a plan. I'm not that person. I love a plan, whether it's a day-to-day plan, a plan for the week, a plan for my holiday, a career plan. And I suddenly felt that career plan was no longer relevant.
I thought you was a bit of a planner, because I got a message from my team that you looked at my LinkedIn profile every day this week.
I'm just there going, what else can I find out about it? Because there's not that much information on there about you.
Huh?
And I was wondering.
It's not about me, it's about you.
No, I know, but I'm interested in you as well. And I just thought, what makes him tick? What's he all about? And your bio, it gave me a little bit, but not enough. I wanted to know more.
You was intrigued.
I really
but that's why you turn up to know more, right?
Exactly.
So do you think when you're early on in your career, or wherever you are now, planning is so important? Because you talked about some people just go, yeah, let's see what happens and stuff. And we've had a number of guests on that says, yeah, I just see what happens. But we've also had a number of guests on that says, no plan.
Yeah. So I always remember when I was making the move between kind of the finance function and a commercial branch, if you like, is probably the easiest way to put it. I remember having an interview with the MD at the time, and he said, so go on, what's your 5-year plan? I sat there and I thought, I don't really have a 5-year plan. And he must have seen the look on my face, because I thought, I want to be really credible and impress you with where I'm going to be in 5 years' time. And my face must have dropped a little bit, and he went, no, I don't have a 5-year plan either. So I think it's somewhere in the middle, if I'm honest. So I think I've always said, and I taught anyone I kind of coach or I mentor, I will always talk about, this might be right or wrong for everybody, but don't go after a job title. Talk to me about what you love. So what do you thrive on? So I always thought being in finance, I had to be a disciplined technical expert, and that was my thing. But actually, being a generalist is really exciting. And I think certainly my experience is just being open to different opportunities, but knowing kind of what your core values are, what has to be true. So for me, I want to work with a team. So don't shut me off in an office and just say, deliver this. I'd shrivel. Oh, it would be awful. I love working with people. I love leading teams. I love creating teams. So that is a real must for me. Now, if someone came along and said, okay, so rather than being COO, come and do this job over here, you still get a team, and it was the right time for me to move on from my current role, if I was going to learn something, then I would do. So I think what I would say is I'm probably a planner for the next kind of 2 years, and then after that I'm very opportunistic.
I know what your next role could be.
Oh, go on.
CCO, Chief Call Officer.
Chief Call Officer.
It's cool, isn't it?
Could do that.
But talking about titles, what does the COO do?
It's a really good, you know what, it's a cracking question, and I often, if someone, I don't know, I've got an appointment or something, someone say, so what do you do? I'll go, well, I'm Chief Operating Officer for an insurance company. And I feel like that totally underplays it, because I think the minute you say Chief Operating Officer, I mean, what does that actually mean? But then when you follow it by insurance company, I think some people think, oh. But actually, for me, I get to lead a bunch of the 900 people in the UK, I've got about 400 people in my teams. So I've got loads of people who day in, day out will underwrite insurance policies for our customers. We will deal with customers who want to change their policy midway through or want a new policy, or customers who just ring up and to ask for a bit of information. So I've got loads of my teams who do that, and they are brilliant. They put customers first, and they're always thinking about how do they improve the customer journey in terms of what they're doing. Secondly, I've got a team who run the change function. So anything where we want to implement a new piece of technology, or we have had a specific bit of customer feedback, we want to understand a little bit more about it and then improve that. Again, I've got a ring-fence team who specifically look at that. They control my change budget, and they spend that really wisely, really consciously, to make sure that we're driving, the business for the success of ourselves, obviously, but also for customers. And then I've got a team who look after data. So insurance is hugely based on data. So whether that's the data in terms of our performance, whether it's data around our customers and or upcoming products. So where are people, clicking on Google and typing in, I want cyber insurance or whatever, it's all based on data. So I've got a fantastic team. Some of them are based out in our Lisbon office, some of them in York. And they're all about how do we make sure that our data sets are kind of, populated and cleansed and are really easy to digest, because data's great, but only if you can use it. Yeah. So they are really always kind of consciously aware of teams inside of Hiscox. What do they need information for? What decisions are they going to make off the back of it? So that's what they do. And then last but not least, I've got an operational excellence team. So they wake up every day and they're kind of basis is to try and figure out how do we be the best that we can be every single day. So I've got teams who will schedule, so making sure that we match the resourcing in the teams to the demands for when customers call us. I've got an MI team, so they'll look at the performance of our kind of teams and kind of where we've got real superstars and maybe where we need some people to have some additional coaching. I've got someone who looks after governance. She's a real firecracker. She's brilliant. So she's come in and she's created a really great environment for us to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our regulators. And so, yeah, it kind of the combination of all of those two.
You say it so easily. It seems like 6 jobs in one.
I mean, it does feel like that on some days, but this is where it comes to kind of that bit about building a team. So I've got leaders who lead each of those teams, and they are brilliant. They are absolute experts in their field. They bring a real passion, energy and enthusiasm for what they do, and in turn their teams see that and really react really well to it and respond to it. So yeah, there's no way I could do this. I wouldn't want to, and I couldn't do it as a solo mission. It requires my team, and we work so well together. It's brilliant.
Do you know you're sitting in front of a customer? I've been a customer for Hiscox.
Have you?
7 to 5 years.
I love that.
I've been an entrepreneur, and this show is a customer.
Really?
Well. Yeah.
How's it been for you?
Oh, I've never had to have any issues. It's so easy.
Oh, so pleased.
Touch. Where's this wood?
There you go.
Wood.
Yeah.
We've never had to have a claim, and everything's just been so simplified.
Brilliant.
In terms of how everything comes across, easy understanding. Yeah. Instant and kind, nice.
Brilliant, and I love that. And when we recruit people into our contact centre teams, historically you'd have always looked for people with that sort of experience, but actually now what we look for is that sort of empathy, someone who can hold a conversation, someone who understands that the person on the end of that phone ultimately is really eagerly listening to what they say and wants to understand. I think insurance probably in the past has had a bit of a rep for not being that easy to understand. We are constantly trying to do, kind of a few things. One is, how do we make it as simple to do business with? So that's absolutely one of my mantras. So we need to be easy to do business with. How do we do it in an efficient manner? Now, that doesn't mean shortcut. That means efficient per the needs of the customer or the broker. Absolutely. And then third, at that moment that matters, we're there and we hold your hand through that time. So that's really good to hear that.
I think you've ticked all those 3 boxes for the last 7 years with us. Not that I manage it directly now. I'm saying it. There's someone else sitting over on the sofa that does it.
Thank you very much for sitting over on the sofa.
But that's brilliant, isn't it? And what part of the, if someone was sitting there going, oh, that sounds really interesting. I want to be a COO in the future. Yeah. Where would you advise them to start?
Where would you start? So if I reflect back on where I was, so I didn't know what I wanted to do. So very much in between my kind of, whether it's school holidays or university holidays, I'd literally go and write to various organisations to say, can I just come and have a couple of weeks work experience? Now, as it was, none of the places I had work experience kind of has ended up being where I want to be. But I think just going and having a go, I think so much of the job that I have, it's not necessarily around the technical discipline and know-how, which obviously I have, but it's more around how do I create an effective environment in which my teams can succeed. So really it's, I say I'm quite a nosy person, but I think it's more around curiosity and how do I understand what's going on so that I know where we're doing really well, where we need to improve, trying to anticipate the next thing. So I don't think there's any one skill set that you necessarily need. I just say, go and have a go. Just go and get some experience. Definitely from my perspective in my role, it's the ability to talk to anybody and everybody, irrespective of who you are in the organisation. Because you could one day be sat side by side with one of my call handlers listening to a call from a customer, or I could be sat presenting in front of the group board. So again, it's having the ability to articulate what you're trying to say. So
or doing your first podcast,
or doing my first podcast, yeah, exactly. And so I like to think where I've got to now is a series of different opportunities where I've said yes to. And I think if you were to ask 10 other COOs what was their route, no one would have the same route as me. In fact, I would imagine all 10 COOs have come at it from different routes. And that, to some extent, is one of the brilliant things about this role. Unlike certain roles where, I don't know, if you want to be the chief actuary, you're probably not going to get there unless you've done your actuarial exams and you've had a whole heap of experience. Same with kind of being a CFO. So certain roles where you absolutely need to have ticked the boxes of certain experiences. But that's the brilliant thing about a COO. You can approach it in so many different ways, and no one way will be the same.
So I want to talk a little bit about happiness at work.
Yeah.
Like, what should make people happy about work? What makes you happy?
If I can approach that in a slightly different way, and I'll reverse it to when I wasn't, because that's kind of my reference point, really. So it was the last role that I'd done in a finance environment, and I had a really small team. So I was also an SME as well as my team, and we were responsible for sort of budgeting and forecasting. And I had a really tricky internal customer, and I just couldn't work her out. And she was really difficult to deal with. So on the one hand, she'd be nice as pie to you face to face, and then when you were kind of dealing with things over email, she'd be quite cutting. And I'd rather you be one or the other, but trying to navigate that in the middle, I really struggled, to the point where I actually went to my leader at the time, and there were other things that happened, but I went to my leader at the time and I said, look, I either have to find another job in RSA or I have to leave, because I can't keep doing this. Because I'd wake up in the morning and dread, like, not just have anxiety or butterflies, and I'm not throwing anxiety away as by the way, it can be crippling, but it wasn't just butterflies, it was properly, I do not want to get out of bed, tears. So I thought, this is not okay. I'm in my late 20s, hang on, this can't be how the next bit of my career plays out. So I went to speak to my leader at the time, and it was one of those sort of serendipity moments where he said, oh, actually, this role is coming up. Go and speak to this guy, Paul. He might have a role for you. So I went to speak to him, and I've never, certainly I'm getting better, but I've never been hugely confident in terms of, everyone bandies that sort of imposter syndrome around. I've never been one to go and say, I'm amazing at this is why you should pick me. I've always done it more kind of stealth-like. So when I got speaking to this guy and he was talking about what he wanted from the role, I started to go, yeah, I could do that. So it was this sort of quiet confidence that was building. And when I went into that team, it was clear we needed to do a lot of work on the finance team. So I'd moved from kind of a central finance to a commercial finance team, and it was me plus kind of 2.5 arms, legs, it wasn't a proper team. So one of the first things I did was to create the team, which I get a real kind of energy from, finding not necessarily, the most experienced people, but those bright sparks who have got something about them. So I guess that shift from somewhere where I felt so low to somewhere where I felt hope, optimism, I knew my purpose. I felt like I was needed, I was wanted, and there wasn't almost a blueprint to kind of rinse and repeat. It was kind of my gift to go and create what I needed and what I wanted. And the kind of time I had in that role, it was about 4 years in the end, which is probably the longest I've ever spent in any one role. But halfway through that, we were doing some serious contract negotiations with our client, and they were proper edge of seat, didn't really know exactly what I was doing absolutely every day, but the adrenaline, the buzz, the excitement, doing something where I was representing my organisation, learning as I was going along, interacting with lawyers and finance people and, contract term writing, I felt like I had a real purpose. And the result of all of that, we signed a really good contract, and it was brilliant and it worked. And if I kind of reflect back on my time, up until this role, I would say that's probably the happiest I've ever been in a role, because it was about creating a team of brilliant people who were there to solve quite a big challenge. We'd just come out of a huge inflationary spike in motor insurance, and motor insurance premiums were going through the roof, which meant customers weren't, as happy as they could be, because no one wants their car premiums to go up. and we needed to understand what was going on and crunch the data. And it was such a team effort because we all had to lean in to kind of solve the number of problems we had. But the team meant that we were so knitted together. So as much as it was hard work, and we would, you know, I don't necessarily advocate for doing mega long hours in work, but we were working some really chunky hours, but we did it with fun. And I say that, you know, as at today as well. So we are in Hiscox, you know, looking at how we grow. So we've got a really big growth agenda, which is super exciting. But we need to make sure that we do it kind of with the right skills, the right capabilities, the right infrastructure, so we set ourselves up for success. So again, you know, we have been doing some really challenging work of late, kind of very tough deadlines, but, you know, I'm doing it with the team, and we often say, you know, we are having fun doing it. So I think we spend so much of our working week in work, and to not have fun would be really, really sad. So for me, I think it's, yes, work hard because you want to feel that end of Friday night, you want to feel like you've earned that glass of wine because you've really put a lot of effort in. You want to achieve, you want to deliver, because ultimately I'm paid to do a job and I want to deliver for Hiscox. But try and have fun along the way. And if you don't feel like you're having fun, ask yourself why not. Is it because you don't have the right people around you? Is it because actually it's not the role for you? It could be that you've grown out of a role and you've lost the love and the passion for it. But yeah, I think fun. Create an element of fun.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you're ultimately there paid to do a job, and you've signed an employment contract, and there's obviously obligations that you have to. Do you think that is educated enough when someone joins an organisation? Because we've employed hundreds of people, and when they're in their first time job, they don't really know what their first employment contract is, and then they have they don't really understand that they have a narrow sense of duty. And so, both do, the employer and the employee does.
You're absolutely spot on. And if I tell you, so when I first joined RSA and I got my first, I think I joined in September, and at the start of the year when bonus time came round, I got this, I don't know, £200 additional money in my bank account. I was like, oh my God, what's this? I clearly hadn't read that, you know, if the year's good, you get a bonus. So I certainly didn't read, I was just giddy to get a job, I think, at that point in time. You're absolutely right when you call out the employee and the employer. So we absolutely have a duty of care to make sure the environment we have in the office is one in which people can be themselves, they feel safe, they feel they can ask questions, they feel like they can bring their best versions to work. So we've got to create that environment. But absolutely, there is 100% a responsibility on the individual to come and do the best that they can as well. So let's assume I provide the environment for them. I absolutely have an expectation that they will come to the office that day and be prepared to kind of do the work that we expect of them. I would say most people are great. The odd person, you do kind of sit there and go, what? Oh my goodness me, because there is just a complete disjoin of the expectations. So, you know, there will always be that person who just rocks up 15, 20 minutes late for their allocated shift on a regular basis. And what they're not seeing is the impact on the customer. So by them not being ready and available to speak to customers at 9 o'clock, for example, they're letting someone down.
But my bus was late. What's your problem?
No, exactly. No, absolutely. This is the thing. And, you know, as a seasoned pro, I'd kind of go, well, you should have got an earlier bus. But I do, you're absolutely spot on. And I think there are things that work both ways. So things like probation periods where we should sit down and properly explain to someone, you know, within this time frame, we will be teaching you how to do X, Y, and Z. We will have checkpoints. We'll tell you how you're doing. So that two-way dialogue. I would say certainly within my contact centre teams, I've got brilliant leaders who know as part of their role, they are there to coach, mentor, bring people on. You know, they've been through probably days, if not weeks, of recruitment processes. So they want to make sure that the people we're investing in, you know, are going to be there tomorrow, the next day, next week. So they absolutely, you know, kind of fall into that. Unfortunately, you know, sometimes there is a little bit of, is an office environment the right thing for everybody? No. But that's kind of, I think, a broader piece that says, how do we help from a school and a university perspective to educate people that it's not just putting on a suit and tie, not that we put on suits and ties anymore these days, but not that you have to kind of get in and do a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. It's a very kind of traditional way of thinking, and yet I do still think school leavers, college leavers, you know, graduates don't necessarily know where to go to, and therefore kind of go, well, I'll apply for this bank or apply for this insurance company. There's so much more. So yes, we've got an onus to make sure when they're in the building, we make it a nice environment, an environment in which they can succeed, but I think it's so much more than that.
It takes two, right?
Completely. And I think it goes back to that curiosity piece. You know, we've had, you know, children of employees come and do a work experience for a week. We don't pay them. They just come and experience it and see what it's all about. I'd be very surprised if you went knocking on the door of a company and said, can I come and do a week's worth of work experience just to see whether it's for me? I'd be really surprised if someone said, free labour? No, probably shouldn't say that. But, you know, brilliant experience. Go and be curious and go and find out if that's for you.
Go and
before you
door,
go and
right?
apply for that, you know, for that job. Go and find out what it's all about.
And do a number of them, right? To see what
totally.
Like.
I mean, as I said, you know, before, I did so many different. I worked in accountancy, I worked in a insolvency firm, I worked in a bank. I was a holiday rep in the French Alps over a summer. I mean, I knew that wasn't going to be my gig forever, but that was really nice for 3 months. You know, I mean, even when I joined, you know, RSA, my first role was as an internal auditor, and I lasted about 8 months. I really just didn't like it in the slightest. So you're going to have these times in your career where you go and have a go at something that's not quite right. Why should that just be for when you're in your career? You know, 16, 17, 18, go and just get out. Go and knock on doors and see what's... Yeah, exactly. Right? What would be expected of me? What would happen if I was 15 minutes late every single day because my bus was late? You know, go and ask those questions that you'll only learn by asking, because you're not going to, well, I don't know, I don't suppose you're going to find out online exactly what it's like to be in that office day in, day out. But actually, I would like to think once you do get through the door in Hiscox, and everyone I spoke to when I was applying and being interviewed for this role, I just found everyone really warm, really welcoming, and that's certainly my experience since I've joined. So, so that sort of environment that we're hoping to create, I do think we've created.
But also, an employee joining,
yeah,
they may not know what you do. There'll be some employees internally that watch this when this goes live and go, oh, when you explain your COO role, I didn't know you also got involved with that bit.
Yeah, completely.
I just did a, I just became this the boss of Lego. I lasted a day. It was fun because you actually call on your team, and don't you? And I know obviously it was filmed and everything, but you actually realise, oh wow, this is what actually happens.
Yeah,
this
completely.
Is what takes place.
And we are looking. We're looking at the moment, so obviously as part of the recruitment process, we make sure that we educate, because there's no point in putting someone through that process if actually they don't think that they're coming to deal with customers and they're going to have to speak. You know, I have had experiences, not in Hiscox, but in previous roles where I've recruited someone to speak to customers on a daily basis, and actually it turns out they don't like speaking on the phone. So we should have found that out during the interview process and not waited till they were in that situation and probably hating it. So there's definitely an education piece on our behalf to say this is what we're all about, and we make sure we do that at the interview stage. And then when they're in the door, we're looking at different ways to do the induction process. So how do we make it far more interactive and not just kind of dull videos or PowerPoint slides, so bringing it to life as much as possible so that quite early doors, people can start to get a feel as to what's going to be expected of them in, say, 6 to 8 weeks' time when they're in that live environment, because you're better off figuring that out sooner rather than later. It's more difficult to kind of walk away when you're further down the track. But yeah, the more that we can educate and bring it to life, the better.
And you're around the year mark in the org.
I am. I've just had my anniversary.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah.
If you were to sum it up in one word, Hiscox, what would it be?
I'd say opportunity. I think for me as an individual, it's given me the opportunity to get some energy back and some enthusiasm and really kind of kickstart again. I think there's opportunity for the organisation. I am so pleased I've joined now. It is, when you listen to anyone, so Aki speak or, my boss, John Dye, when they talk about what we are shooting for, it's ambitious, but that's exciting. That means we've got things to strive for. It means that we're going to have an environment where we can make change for good. And I also think, I was even on a call yesterday where we were thinking about new products that we would launch for customers. It's thinking about what opportunities have we got to fill gaps for customers where they're sat there scratching their heads at the moment, kind of going, oh, where do I go? So that word opportunity for me just sums up for everyone involved who either deals with us or who works for Hiscox. I think we've got opportunities to be
That's a brilliant word.
Even better and even more brilliant than we are today.
And are you ready for my final question?
I think so.
What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
Well, you know what? Days like today, when the sun is shining, I want to be up and out. For me, getting out in the fresh air and just feeling refreshed and up for it is brilliant. But I come back to what I said before. I work with some brilliant people and I have fun. So actually, coming to work, would I say no to winning the lottery? But coming to work is really fun and I enjoy it. So just doing more of what I do.
I love that. And I can see you're a ball of joy to work with, but also a bit of an iron fist.
Oh, you know what?
Let's get things done.
Yeah, definitely. We want to deliver things, make things better. So,
yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much. I've loved it.
Now you can tick off your first podcast.
Woo,
I'm going to see you on a lot more, I can tell.
Yes, definitely.
And I want to say thank you.
Thank you so much.
And there we are.
Well,
how'd you find it?
Loved it. That was great fun. Thank you.
Really cool. Really good.